Bomb Rush Cyberfunk has generally been received pretty well by gamers, including fans of Jet Set Radio. I really like the game too, and part of that is because Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is a spiritual successor to one of my favorite games of all time, Jet Set Radio Future, a game linked so closely to my heart that despite its flaws, it's still an old game I like going back to even today. Does that make JSRF obsolete? Not exactly.
Interestingly enough, there are folks who have played both Bomb Rush Cyberfunk and Jet Set Radio Future who feel that Future has some mechanics and features that were better executed than those in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. Something in particular I've noticed from those in the Jet Set Radio community is that their biggest criticisms of Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is that it's too much like Jet Set Radio Future, or it's not enough like Jet Set Radio Future. That may sound confusing at first, but both of these criticisms can be explained by comparing the two. Also, hi, I'm RisingSonic. FalseProof and I are going to get to the bottom of this and pit the two games against each other to see what things each game did better and worse.
Before we get into everything, I just wanted to clarify that we're comparing Bomb Rush to Jet Set Radio Future because we felt that they share a lot of the same gameplay and design mechanics compared to the original Jet Set Radio. So with that said, how about you start this one off, Tony?
For an Xbox launch title, Jet Set Radio Future looked nice for its time. Minus the NPCs, the playable characters looked less blocky than the original game. The worlds were very detailed and expansive, and it certainly carries that look of edge that the 2000s is known for. As someone that has grown up with this era of video games, I'm always going to have a soft spot for how this game looks. However, I am reminded of how dated this game really is.
I mean, fair point, but you gotta start somewhere.
I've brought this up in my comparison of the original game and Future that the NPC variety in Future is pretty whack. Unlike the OG game having specific NPCs for each area, you're guaranteed to see the same NPCs in every area. They get very boring to look at very quickly, even if certain NPCs try their best to fit the specific atmosphere and the levels they're in. I will never get tired of their voice lines though. Animations in Future are certainly something. I mean, I'm not gonna complain about the dancing and the tricks being done. Those are actually really well done. I'm more so talking about what happens in cutscenes. Usually you'll see the characters standing around doing their default dance or nothing at all with their stilted expressions while they try to mimic some form of mouth movement when they're saying dialogue. Sometimes they don't even move at all. And when there is a unique form of movement, it's whatever the heck Hayashi does in this cutscene. This game looks good in motion when it comes to gameplay, but when it comes to cutscenes, I mean, oh boy. It is definitely a launch title on the original Xbox.
Bomb Rush Cyberfunk shares that same 6th generation aesthetic from the partially blocky main characters and levels, as well as the same flat paper NPCs. The big difference is BRC overall is more bright and colorful, much in the same vein as the original Jet Set Radio. Even in low light areas like Matan, the character models are still able to maintain their brightness. Another difference between the game worlds is that Bomb Rush isn't as much of an urban sprawl as Jet Set Radio Future. What I mean by this is Future has 3 large regions with interconnected sub-areas. New Amsterdam is just one big region with 7 main areas, so while you may not see regional similarities like you would in Future, BRC's levels all have their own individual landmarks that really make them stand out. Whether it's Versum Hill's sunset look with the giant open space and and the Bazaar, scaling the giant Tower of Brink Terminal, Pyramid Island's super weird maze look, the nightlife of Matan, Millennium Mall basically having everything. This is personally my favorite area in the whole game. The levels do have a good amount of diversity. While the cutscenes do carry that same stilted and expressionless nature as JSRF, there's at least more movement in the character models, which is something Future just wasn't able to do, perhaps due to technical limitations. The jank is definitely there, but it's appreciated seeing more action in the models.
Well, almost, everyone. Another thing I greatly appreciate about Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is that they tried to give all of their rival characters a distinct look. The Franks, Eclipse, and especially .exe have enough distinctive differences between them. However, with Devil Theory and Futurism, it's so minuscule that you normally can't tell what the differences are without squinting your eyes very hard.
Compared to Jet Set Radio Future, where it's just the same model multiplied 3 times, I think the little details matter.
I've made an extensive video talking about the story of Jet Set Radio Future. While I thoroughly enjoyed the absolute ridiculousness of it, I definitely have my nitpicks. Unlike with Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, which had an interactive cast of characters that we can walk through the story with, we are getting told the story. Now, thematically, it makes sense. Jet Set Radio is what the GGs are listening to for news, and DJK is our narrator and our navigator. DJK is a great character as both in the story and how he's also implemented in the gameplay. However, getting to see the personalities of the GGs through these optional dialogues is a bit of a shame that we won't ever get a chance to see them shine in a more interactive story. We really only have DJK, Hayashi, and Goji to do most of the carrying.
And it is also very disjointed, jumping at boost dash speed between the 3 different arcs. You start off fighting Poison Jam, then you're gonna be fighting some noise tanks, and then all of a sudden, the Golden Rhinos appear. The last chapter, Chapter 8 especially, is super rushed. Zero Beat just shows up out of nowhere spraying graffiti while everyone is trying to not die from this giant alien monstrosity. But there's just so many questions to ask. Where did he come from? Why is he doing this? How was Goji able to make this tower and bring it from the Rokaku Expo to the bus terminal? If he's able to summon Zero Beat, what exactly is Zero Beat? Why is Zero Beat a Beat doppelganger? The only sort of foreshadowing you have to all of the things that happened in Chapter 8 would be seeing the tower in the Rokaku Expo Stadium, but it's not significant until you reach the ending. Is Goji becoming a demon cool? I mean, yeah. But all the prior stuff leading up to this point is very silly. We probably needed another cutscene or 2 explaining all of these demon powers.
Bomb Rush Cyberfunk's strongest point when it comes to the story are our main cast of characters. This is the difference compared to Future, where we are now following through the story alongside our main characters. We get to see their personalities in the forefront and get to see how they progress throughout our journey. While we may not have deep characters, we have entertaining characters. Whether it's Red trying to discover his true self and finding his own purpose in a different body, Trice with his snarky and straight man attitude, Bell's silly and quirky attitude, and Solus just being himself. There is a lot to enjoy in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk's story where, at least in the beginning and the middle, the journey is well put together. It takes the plot of the OG Jet Set Radio about turf warfare and combines it with the mystery of Red's true identity. And when we reach the climax at the end of the story, I'd say that it led to a rather satisfying conclusion, even if the build to it was admittedly iffy. DJ Cyber and Vinyl's plan to bring back Felix's memory is the most convoluted and ridiculous pile of nonsense ever, and there were multiple ways it could have been resolved in a more efficient manner. At least we get to see DJ Cyber get punched.
Now, look, I think both games do well setting up their respective plots and give you the ending you probably want, but the final arcs in both games are rushed and poorly explained. Maybe not something you wanted to emulate as a spiritual successor. Alright, let's move on to gameplay. Gameplay is admittedly the biggest part of skating adventure games, and honestly, Jet Set Radio Future and Bomb Rush Cyberfunk do it well. It's easy to pick up and play either title, with detailed explanations throughout as different mechanics get introduced. BRC does it a little better, making it part of your escape from the police headquarters at the start of the game, but to be fair, it did have a pretty good foundation from JSRF. The action in both games is fast-paced and fun. Future lets you soar across Tokyo-to, pulling off different inline tricks while collecting spray cans and expressing yourself artistically, inching closer and closer to the soul of the streets. Bomb Rush expands this idea and flips it on its head in different ways. The need for spray cans is gone. The technology has advanced to where your momentum from trick chains fills an energy reserve you can use for graffiti murals or jetpack boosting. It saves you from hoarding spray cans and not having the gameplay interrupted. I do enjoy the new mechanics of BRC, especially the jetpack, but I find JSRF gives you more satisfaction with tight cornering, more precise timings, and less forgiveness with the platforming.
The controls of Jet Set Radio Future also coincide with the fact that characters have different stats that change their cornering, how many cans they hold, and how easily they can latch onto grind rails. It brings a nice uniqueness to the game, but there are clear losers and winners in this game. Gum has the best corner control both on the ground and in the air, while Jazz and Clutch still maintain an average cornering while bolstering the highest number of cans they can hold. Great characters to play for the best controls. Unlike characters like Combo and Cube, who have terrible turning controls, with Cube especially only being able to hold 25 cans. If your favorite character got the short end of the stick, you were gonna have to feel it in the controls and your resources. This is a non-issue in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk because everyone controls the same. This could be seen as boring to some, but this also means you're not sacrificing anything when you just want to play your favorite character.
I think we can simply say that both games are fun for different reasons. Bomb Rush's redux of JSRF mechanics goes much further than just controls. Being able to switch between skates, BMX, and skateboarding is really fun and not something I would have considered. It's a nice staple of improvement in game design. Now, speaking of design, I have to honestly say this is probably the best map design across all of these skating adventure games. It's really easy to see the different elevation levels, which makes it a lot easier to find missing graffiti spots for completion. I do wish you could see the entire map in one view rather than the weird cropped rectangle in the pause menu. And, playing on PC, maybe the mods will save me here. A big gripe from Jet Set Radio fans has always been the difference in graffiti mechanics across both games. Whereas Jet Set Radio has a motion style minigame for mural painting, Jet Set Radio Future opts for a moving quick spray that's deemed unrealistic by some players. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk kind of marries the two styles together, having quick sprays for character logo spots and then a motion style minigame for bigger murals, although it's much quicker than the one you're doing in Jet Set Radio. It's probably about as good as you'll get in combining the two ideas, so good on Team Reptile for making it happen. So with all this said, it really seems like Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is the ideal Jet Set Radio game. Let's slow your roll there, partner. We're not done here. While BRC definitely fixed a lot of the flaws in the JSR gameplay loop, it missed a few things and even forgot some features that actually worked in the skating adventure game design. A glaring omission, in my view, is the lack of objective tracking. After you finish the story objective of an area, Bomb Rush allows you to return and find a map card, which unlocks the rest of the graffiti spots, opening up your path to having the highest rep possible, which allows you to unlock more and more things in the world. It's very similar to the mystery tape in Jet Set Radio Future. However, JSRF at least gives you a graffiti count so you know how many spots you're missing and what kind of objectives you need to complete for the street challenges once you get the mystery tape. With BRC, you essentially just get map spots for the graffiti and that's it. No logged count or objective tracking. Some levels require you to find characters for challenges, which could have been done much easier with some kind of little message board rumor, some way of using the cell phone to track these objectives. But nope, nothing like that. It's pretty bad if a 20-plus-year-old game has better goal tracking than your new release.
Those were the initial issues with BRC in its 1.0 form. Bomb Rush on release had a lot of confusing missing features that even Future managed to have back in its day. For example, there wasn't initially a dance spot in the hideout in the first version of the game, meaning you couldn't switch to all the characters and you had to go out to an area to switch to the characters like our main 5 and the rivals. There was no way to tell on how many collectibles there were in every level, and no indicators on things such as taxi spots, bathrooms, and the ciphers. The Franks were forced on the bike style and couldn't switch to the other styles at all. 1.0 BRC was a bit of a messy game. All of these things though, thankfully got patched later. Now we have the cipher spot in the hideout. The indicators for the bathroom and taxi spots are there. Now we know how many collectibles are in each level. Patches are a huge benefit to games these days. We can get free updates for fixes of the game to help make the player experience better, which was not a practice back in the days of Future's release. And if it did get patches, it would get repackaged to you as a completely new full-price game. Oh wait, that already happened with the original Jet Set Radio with De La Jet Set Radio. Oops.
And don't forget, the port itself has its own issues.
To talk about finding those extra characters in Bomb Rush, when you eventually do find them during your exploration, after you complete their first initial challenge, the characters will tell you the next location they'll be at, whether it's through dialogue or a text message. Or they don't tell you at all and you gotta figure it out yourself. Think of the recruitments in future where you just gotta talk to them a few times after chasing them, but you don't get to see where they're gonna go and have no information on the map to tell you where they are. On the first playthrough, it's kinda silly because the game expects you to just kinda know the locations the extra characters are gonna be in next. Maybe you'll get an idea from hints like the Underground Bazaar or Planet Plaza, but getting told, "I'll see you on the street sometime," or "I've got a Delta," or "next time is gonna be crazy," like what are you guys even talking about? Some characters give you their locations through text messages. However, you can only get some messages by skating near specific areas. Mesh and Coil are the worst examples of this. Like, how are you supposed to know that you have to skate under this tunnel or just grind on this specific block of Matan in order to get their messages? How is anyone supposed to figure that out? So, the communication is not great. Future's Goose Chasers did nothing but waste your time, which they quickly drop after Chapter 2 with Poison Gem. In BRC, it's practically everywhere with all of the rival characters and the extra characters. Shine's recruitment being the biggest time waster of them all. Here's a rundown for recruitment.
Hey, what's goody? I go by Shine, Dancing Queen, Bun Girl, and totally Beats cousin. You can ask him. Now come on and let's rock! I'll even give you my number.
Damn, you don't have to tell me twice. I'll do what I have to do to play as you.
Yo, what's good, my G? Come to the food court and let's get it poppin' in this mall.
Okay, that's not a crazy travel. I could do just that. Just give me a little bit and I'll be right there in just a second.
I'm jamming in the record store now. You gonna be there?
Wow, that's just a few steps away from the food court. Oh, no worries. I'll get there in an instant. Alright, why are you not here?
Oof, my bad, gang. I was never there in the first place. Silly goose. I'm under the stairs by the theater. We gotta bring the house down.
Okay, that was a little weird that you told me to go to this location and then you decided to flake on me and go somewhere else and you're all the way on the other side of the mall, but that's okay. I'm gonna do whatever I can just so I can play as you.
So, like, now I'm at the top of the food court with the fishes. They're real damp. I'll be there. I promise.
Alright, I'm not gonna lie, this is getting a little annoying now. I'm actually kind of bored chasing you around. I just really want to play as you. Can you please stop doing this? Why are you not up here again?
Okay, maybe I was trolling a little bit. Sorry, homie. Now I'm in the warehouse. I hope I ain't wearing you out, though.
Why did they decide to drag this out for so long? I don't understand. I just want to play as you, Shine. Please.
You really know how to break it down. Glad you wasted 7 minutes to recruit me. Can I join you now?
Ma'am, you're killing me here. But fine, you can join the Bomb Rush crew.
Yes, thanks.
The phone is a very great addition to BRC where you can both locate things and still keep the gameplay going without pausing. It's cool that we're able to pick any song we've collected to play on any stage we're currently on. You can shuffle songs in the music playlist and the songs will continue to play when you go to another level. I will say though, the most obnoxious thing about getting collectibles like CDs, new graffitis, or gear is that you have to constantly hit every soda machine and garbage can in the off chance that there might be a collectible in them. The happy slappers were implemented very well to get the extra stuff. I would have preferred more of those to challenge your platforming and knowledge of the levels, instead of having to randomly hope that a collectible is going to be in a soda machine or garbage can. I don't think either JSRF Radio Future or Bomb Rush Cyberfunk has found a good way to seamlessly mesh the police into the gameplay loop. They aren't arcade-style games where getting the highest score is a top priority, which made the police a threat in the original JSRF Radio since you had to think of the best route to avoid interacting with the police as much as possible. JSRF is stuck doing these Mickey Mouse difficulty boss fights, which really interrupts the pace of the game. BRC tries to have the police be more active in the gameplay loop, which in theory should work. But then you remember, there's no real punishment here, since there's no point system. I think this is definitely the worst the police have been handled, and it really rears its ugly head during the post game. They still show up to try and stop you while you're trying to 100% the game. It becomes annoying when you go to the bathroom to get the heat off you, only to get the heat back again because there's some tags you need to still clear. Which also means you gotta watch the same police cutscenes again and again and again. Thankfully, there are mods that fix both of these issues. Since I mentioned mods, let's bring up the modding aspects of both BRC and JSRF. Since its release, BRC's modding scene has been absolutely booming. Besides things like texture mods, custom graffiti, or model replacements, there's been a number of gameplay mods that have been able to overall smoothen the experience for players. Whether it's fixing gameplay issues, adding in new features to add to the experience, or presenting new ways to play the game. It increases the replayability of this game dramatically, and the modding community continues to thrive. The Slop Crew multiplayer mod being the biggest mod in BRC right now to play with other people. It's amazing. Future's modding scene is still kind of in its infancy stages and not as active. There aren't any substantial gameplay mods besides having a save file that's essentially a new game plus being added into the game. There are a lot of tools needed to really get started on modding Future. If you do have the patience, you can be able to add a different spin on the game, much like how I made my version of Future have a complete persona overhaul from graffiti to character voices and character portraits. I'm not a professional modder, so this is the best I can do. Maybe in the future, there can be some gameplay improvements to help smoothen the experience of Future.
There's also been some development into custom levels for both games. While JSRF has a fully dedicated program thanks to the elite tier programmer Neodos, it seems like BRC has an easier time making new levels accessible to the community. A good example being the Millennium Christmas level and extra stuff from the Slop Crew. The 100% completion process for both Jet Set Radio Future and Bomb Rush Cyberfunk are actually not too strenuous at all. JSRF's completion process involves recruiting other skaters into the GGs, finding the mystery tape in all the levels, completing the street challenges, which all kind of follow a similar formula of objectives, with the final street challenge being stage specific, clearing all the graffiti, collecting all the graffiti souls, and then completing the test runs where you either do a race, get the highest score from tricks, clear graffiti in the fastest time, or running around for some flags. The main challenge really comes from the platforming to get the post-game graffiti. There are 13 levels to clear all these challenges, so it can feel like quite a marathon going through them all.
The test runs are pathetically easy. All of the times for races, graffiti, and flag battles are very lenient, and once you find that rail pattern to give you times 16 from tricks, you're never failing jet tech. It's easily the most boring part of the 100% process because it just feels like padding. Some stages like Kiwagaoka, the fortified residential zone, and oh my god, Sky Dinosaurian Square becomes way worse going for the 100% due to the sheer size and how obnoxious it is to traverse through them. Those levels and the test runs can suck the fun out of the process.
Alright, look, Rising, you know what? I'll vouch for Sky Dino as a fun level. It's just fun flying around all these loops, okay? Don't hate on Sky Dino. Also, look at those cute dinosaurs.
Bomb Rush Cyberfunk's 100% process focuses on getting all the characters, collectibles, and graffiti. Getting the characters involved during their quests, which is either a score attack, hitting a graffiti spot, doing a race, or just dancing with them. Finding them is the only difficult part. In the post game, you'll be doing a score attack challenges against the rivals in each level to make them join you. These challenges have some of the highest scores yet in the game. This is where you put your skills to the test and how well you can maintain a combo. Might be some trouble on the first playthrough if you're not used to the levels yet, but thankfully the previous crew battles were good warm-ups for you to take on these challenges. Getting all the graffiti tags, much like Jet Set Radio Future, is all about the platforming, but it's a little easier since the levels are more condensed overall. Even if you happen to fall, there's always a shortcut to get back to where you started. The collectibles. These are going to be the real challenges because there are a lot of them. You gotta look through every nook and cranny to find them all, especially those really annoying ones hidden in trash cans and vending machines. The casual 100% completion time for JSRF is roughly around 13 and 14 hours, while BRC's 100 completion time is roughly around 6 to 7 hours. It really comes down to BRC having less number of areas compared to JSRF and having less variety in unlock methods, which is not a bad thing because it never really feels like BRC is dragging on for too long or it feels bloated in its process. Meanwhile, the test runs in JSRF extends the playtime in a rather monotonous way. BRC's is more lacking in difficulty, which you can say that's where Future shines a bit better in that aspect. There is something else I want to bring up that was a talking point with BRC's release: the price of the game. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is a $40 game which bothered a lot of Jet Set Radio folks. To look at the content given to us, the main story, if you just played it straight without finding the extra characters, will take you about 3 hours. Then if you're only going for 100%, that would roughly bump it to 6 to 7 hours at least. Prices for games are getting higher. For a select number of Jet Set Radio fans, they felt, why should I spend $40 on what's essentially a reskin Jet Set Radio Future? Which confused me because Jet Set Radio Future clocks in around the same time as BRC in a casual run, and it's bloated in its 100% run, and its cost was a little more back then in the early 2000s. $49.99 to be exact. I even posed this question on Twitter, and a lot of the responses I got were wanting features that were in JSRF, like characters having unique stacks on multiplayer mode, and something more akin to the test runs. But does BRC really need those things for you to justify your payment of it? Even if you happen to really like it? Maybe False can better explain it for me.
Gaming across the years has changed between these two games, and Bomb Rush Cyberfunk isn't trying to emulate Jet Set Radio Future perfectly. It wants to be its own experience. That's not trying to dismiss how people feel about either title. Just because there aren't features that made the leap to Team Reptile's designs 20 years later, that doesn't mean BRC is lacking in any way compared to JSRF. It may not have been necessary for Bomb Rush. With that said, any of these features that people find are missing could easily be modded in with a PC release based on the current output from the fan community. When you really look at the big picture, an indie title coming close to matching quality with a major third-party Xbox release is pretty cool, even if it's from the original Xbox. Look, Jet Set Radio Future wasn't perfect. It stands to reason that a game based on it won't be either. What Bomb Rush does well is satisfying a need from Jet Set Radio fans that's been unmet for decades. After so much time and so much expansion in game development, you realize what you like and dislike about your favorite games and where they can be improved. A lot of the changes I wanted to see in the Jet Set Radio style were implemented in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. There's more story exposition, there's more character interaction, less backtracking, more ways to move around the levels, improved graffiti mechanics, the list goes on and on and on. But there were things that worked well with JSRF that BRC failed to improve or even include. This isn't the end though. I'm sure there's going to be another title from Team Reptile. It's probably in the works right now, thanks to the reception from fans, and with how expansive modding has been so far for Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. A lot of the gripes we've had in this video with the base game could easily be fixed, and we detailed some of them earlier. So, whether it's conquering the streets of Tokyo or going all city in New Amsterdam, I'm just glad that the skating adventures will continue for years to come. Before we get going on some more graffiti adventures, I just wanted to take a second and thank RisingSonic for all his hard work. I'm glad we were able to team up and take on a project like this comparing two really fun games. Tony also helped a lot on the editing side, especially with the intro and the Shine skit, and I could go on and on about all his hard work, but I'll just try to keep it short and sweet. Thank you, Tony. You did great. Let's do it again sometime. There's also a few other people I think we both want to thank. First off, Rudy Queen, of course, for voicing Shine in the skit. Thank you to Wint and Bradical for making the character reference sheets for both games and allowing us to use them. Finally, our sweet intro and thumbnail visual wouldn't have really come to life without the hard work of Hago-chan. Thank you all so much. Everyone's socials are linked below, and we'll link a couple other videos we think you might like. Anyway, I'm FalseProof, and I'll see you later. Bye.